Today, our story is about a man named Joe Crouch, and trust me, this one will keep you hooked until the very end. On the surface, Joe looked like the perfect example of success. A sharp-dressed businessman, a devoted husband, a man people respected. But as we go further, you'll see that behind closed doors, his life was crumbling in ways you won't believe. It started with a habit, a dangerous one. And step by step, that habit dragged him from casino tables to cold-blooded murder to one of the most shocking crime sprees you'll ever hear about. And the deeper we go, the more twisted it gets. So buckle up, because as we move forward, you'll discover exactly how Joe Crouch went from shaking hands to pointing guns. The story of Joe Crouch doesn't begin with a gunshot. It begins with a smile, the kind that made people trust him. Businessman, family man, the neighbor who waves when you drive by. But beneath that calm surface, something ugly was festering. An addiction. Cards, dice, spinning wheels. Joe wasn't just chasing luck. He was feeding a hunger. As the owner of a lending company, money passed through his hands every day. It wasn't his, but that didn't stop him. He gambled through nights that bled into mornings, convinced the next hand would save him. Then came the new casino down the street, a neon magnet pulling him closer, night after night. One evening, in a single rush of bad hands, he watched $18,000 vanish. 2 checks worth $80,000 bounced soon after. Debt had teeth, and they were closing in. By May 2001, the pressure snapped. A prosecutor's voice over the phone sealed his fate. Fraud charges. He owed $85,000. No escape. Telling his wife was like lighting a match in a room full of gas fumes. Her despair was instant, raw. And somewhere in that moment, Joe's mind twisted toward something unthinkable. If she was gone, she'd never have to face the ruin. If she was gone. That night, with a gun in his hand, he walked into the bedroom. 4 shots, 3 to the head, 1 to the chest. The echo lingered in the air as he wrote a letter to his children, a pitiful excuse about love and protection. But he knew the truth. It was selfishness, pure and simple. He called his brother-in-law, confessed. Police were alerted. The manhunt began. For 12 hours, Joe tore across highways, over 300 kilometers of running. In Nashville, he played the role of a retired widower named Jay Nelson, hiding in plain sight. But cash was running out, and every mile brought him closer to capture. A failed bank withdrawal sent him fleeing again, this time to Jacksonville. With only $25 in his pocket, desperation became strategy. He would rob small shops, one by one. No masks, no elaborate plans. Just a gun, a steady voice, and the threat of death. The first job brought him $300. Enough for a shabby motel room. Enough to plot his next hit. Enough to keep moving, because stopping meant the end. And Joe Crouch wasn't ready for the end. By November 2001, Joe Crouch had been running for months, and paranoia was catching up with him. He wrote letters to his son and daughter, pouring out instructions for his son to take over the wreckage of his bankrupt company. But Joe knew something dangerous. The postmark would betray his location. So, instead of mailing them from Daytona Beach, he drove all the way to New Orleans, Louisiana, before dropping them in the mailbox. It didn't matter. The next day, his children turned the letters over to police. Now, the FBI was in the hunt, and Joe knew his time was shrinking. If he wanted to survive, he needed bigger money, fast. That's when he set his sights higher, much higher. A bank. This wouldn't be a reckless smash and grab. Joe had experience, he had patience, and in a move as calculated as it was cowardly, he targeted a bank in Orlando where only women worked, figuring they'd be less likely to resist. December 5th, 2001. Joe waited, watching. Then, his moment. An employee stepped outside for lunch. The door was open. The window was his. Gun in hand, rope ready, and nerves steady, Joe walked in. He went straight to the manager, barrel aimed square at her, ordering her to comply. Within seconds, the staff were on their knees. The vault emptied quickly. $9,000 stuffed into his bag. Before leaving, Joe methodically herded the women into the bathroom, tying it shut so no one could escape until he was long gone. He made it back to his hotel, switched on the TV, and froze. There he was, his face clear on the news, labeled armed and dangerous. He stayed inside that night, letting the tension fade, then returned to his old habits, gambling tables and golf courses like nothing had happened. But the hunger was still there. The adrenaline hadn't faded. April 2nd, 2002, First Alliance Bank. Joe walked away with $12,000, June 2002. Another bank in Jacksonville, $14,000 more in his pocket. Then came August 28, 2002, the day that almost ended it all. Chrome Bank, Dade City, Florida. Joe walked in with total confidence, his gun leveled. A cashier led him straight to the vault, where he scooped $40,000 into his bag. She was locked in the bathroom, but unlike before, this employee knew how to get out. Within minutes, police were swarming. As Joe pulled away, sirens filled the air. 2 cruisers tore past him, and for a split second, Joe thought it was over. His hands twitched toward surrender, but the patrol cars never noticed him. They sped off in another direction. Joe exhaled, gripped the wheel, and kept driving. The chase wasn't over, not by a long shot. For months, Joe Crouch had been a ghost, living on adrenaline, stolen cash, and the rush of getting away with it. But by early 2003, the constant tension of looking over his shoulder was wearing him down. So, he gave himself a break. Checking into a luxury tourist resort under a fake name, Joe began enjoying the high life his stolen money could buy. Golf in the mornings, fine drinks in the evenings. For a moment, it was almost as if the manhunt didn't exist. But Joe's weakness wasn't just gambling. It was talking. One February night, drunk and relaxed, he told some new acquaintances that his wife had been murdered. They were shocked, but what they didn't know was that Joe was the one who pulled the trigger. That same month, the truth came knocking. A friend walked into the bar with a newsletter from the FBI, and right there, in black and white, was a wanted poster. The name on it was J. Nelson, Joe's alias. The picture? Perfectly clear. The friends went straight to the police, giving up Joe's fake name, his location, everything they knew. A plan was set. The FBI wanted him alive, and they knew Joe was clever and dangerous. The strategy: isolate him, strike fast, no chance for him to react. March 16, 2003. Joe sat in his hotel room, sipping a drink, when he spotted a police car outside. He brushed it off, deciding to stay in for the night. As darkness fell, the SWAT team moved in. They found his room, breached the door, and hurled in a flash grenade. A deafening blast, a cloud of smoke. Joe thought the hotel was on fire, until he felt the weight of an officer slamming him to the floor, cold steel of a gun pressed against his head. After 21 months on the run, Joe Crouch's freedom was over. He was extradited to Tennessee to face trial for the murder of his wife. Confessing to everything in the hope of avoiding the death penalty, Joe was sentenced to 51 years in prison. He showed no remorse. In fact, he told reporters he enjoyed every minute of his time on the run, because he knew it would end someday. And so ended the story of Joe Crouch. Once a successful businessman, once a husband and father, now just another number in the prison system, all because he couldn't walk away from a gambling table. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel.